Hi everyone, Tim again. Great to be here and thanks for tuning in. The next session that we're going to talk about is boundaries and zone and district unification as well. So when I first started in the role here in December, the Boundaries Working Party was established by the Board of Bowls New South Wales. I was a part of that Boundaries Working Party and came up to speed very quickly with regards to competition boundaries across our state. So I'm sure many of you are aware that men's and women's competition boundaries still currently don't line up across the state. So we were vested with the task of looking at boundaries and trying to align those, just so it makes sense from a sport governance point of view. And so we're delivering competitions in a streamlined manner, and that male and female members of any bowling club can participate in the same areas moving forward. So that was kind of our scope initially. We set up the Boundaries Working Party as I suggested. We met several times to discuss our plan of attack. We also engaged a small group of stakeholders from a cross-section of the bowls community right across the state. Our intention was to bring them into the office into late December, but COVID kind of ruined that, so we ended up doing a bit of a virtual catch-up with that group. And the focus of that session was to talk about the process of getting to boundary alignment. Look, I'm reasonably new to the sport, but I also understand that the topic of boundaries is quite a contentious one out there in the community. It is something that we want to dedicate a lot of resources to, and we also want to put a lot of investment and effort into to support you at a club level. We want to hear from clubs. We've already heard from a number of clubs with regards to boundaries as well. We understand there's some sensitivities out there that we need to manage, but also at the end of the day, we need to make some pretty strong and hard decisions around boundaries and boundary alignment, but we want to do that in consultation. So we obviously met with that group of stakeholders. We discussed the process for boundary alignment, which was fantastic. Came away from that meeting feeling great, actually. So it was a really, really interesting meeting, and the feedback we had from those stakeholders was critical to the direction we took next. The direction we did take next was to then send a short survey out to our zone and district presidents and secretaries. So in between meeting with that consultative party in December and into early 2023 this year, we'd mapped out some draft boundaries across the state. So I just want to re-emphasize and reiterate that this was a draft version 1, and we think it's going to be draft version 1 of 500 different versions that we're going to look at of boundaries across the state. So that was published and sent to zone district presidents and secretaries for their really immediate feedback with regards to what that looked like. So we had a pretty short turnaround on that survey, and that was done intentionally just because we didn't want too much information to get out there into the public. And it obviously has gotten out to the public. We knew it would. Some zones and districts passed that information on to their membership, and that's asked or caused a lot of questions to be raised by clubs and things, and that's kind of the position we're in at the moment with regards to clubs asking questions around boundaries and whether they're set. The answer to that question is no, boundaries are not set. We want to do this in consultation with our clubs and with our membership as well. So that was sent out in early January, I think it was, to zone and district presidents and secretaries. And the feedback from that survey was really interesting for me personally, and I think for our team as well, and the Boundaries Working Party, to get a bit of a grasp in terms of next steps and where we go from there. So feedback really sort of focused around a number of key themes, such as sort of travel distance and geographical draws of competition and those things. One of the other really interesting points raised a number of times was actually around zone and districts and the need for us to have either or. Why don't we just look at boundary alignment with zone and district unification at the same time? So that raised a really interesting question for us. We put a bit of a pause. I think it kind of caused us to sort of stop and think about the speed at which we were looking to implement boundary change. And I guess we pivoted off the back of that to ask the question and go out to our broader membership with regards to whether we should look at boundaries and zone and district unification in one and the same, essentially. So we sent that survey out a few weeks ago now to our whole membership, and I'm sure you've seen that come out. So off the back of that survey, we asked the simple question of whether you thought we should go down the path of unifying zones and districts at that sort of executive level to really streamline the governance and to streamline the pathways of our sport. So the feedback from that survey is now in. We're soon to publish that out to the broader membership as well, just so we're being transparent with that process. The overwhelming response to that survey has been yes. You want us to go down this path of looking at unifying zones and districts at a state level. So that is, that off the back of that survey, we had over 2,000 people respond to that, which is an amazing sort of sample size, I feel. And close to 90%, it was around 89% of respondents said yes, they're keen for us to go down this path. So I guess with that in mind, with that overwhelming response, 9 out of 10 of those respondents saying yes, they want us to do that. This is a process that we're going to look at now, and I need to ring fence some resources internally to look at that. It is a big job. There's a number of questions out there in terms of everything that we need to look at. We outlined some of those things in that survey that we sent out. I can't give you any I can't give you any answers with regards to the approach we're taking from here, but I can let you know that based off this survey, I will be ring fencing some resources internally to look at this. I'll be looking at establishing that the Boundaries Working Party is now defunct essentially, because we're not just looking at boundaries anymore, we're looking at boundaries and zone and district unification in one and the same. So I'll be looking at creating some sort of working party. I'm still in the process of working out who will be on that party to help me and to help us as an organisation navigate all the different aspects we need to look at to unify zones and districts, and also look at competition boundaries into the future. So that's where we're currently at with this whole process. I know it's a really, really big piece of work for us to look at. It's essentially whole of governance or whole of sport governance reform for us. So it will be a big shift in terms of how we deliver the sport into the future. But we're going off your feedback, and I also think in terms of future-proofing our sport and streamlining the governance of our sport at that zone and district level, really supporting our committees and our volunteers at that, we're calling it sectors for now, at that sector level across the state, is the way for us to move forward. And it's interesting to note that your feedback at a community level is along those same lines as well. So I just wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to provide us with that initial feedback. As I mentioned, this is the first step in many as we sort of move in this direction, and there's a number of things we need to look at, such as legalities, the legalities around sort of merging zones and districts. How does that work? We've got some very, very short and initial legal advice with regards to that, and it is possible, but the process of undertaking that and what those structures look like is still to be confirmed. All the way through to sort of what do we do with the finances, what do we do with uniforms, what do we do with committee structures, what do we do with executive, what do we do with constitutions and bylaws and all those sorts of things. These are things that we need to look at in consultation with you as our members. And it is going to be quite a lengthy process, but I do feel like it will be achievable to unify zones and districts and also look at competition boundaries as one and the same. And hopefully, I think the goal for us should maybe to get that done by 1 July 2024. So that gives us roughly 15 months to get our house in order. Obviously, we need to make some big decisions around this process soon and get moving with regards to that, but that's currently where we're at. I look forward to working with you all in partnership as we move towards this. It is a big governance step for our sport, as I mentioned, but we'll do it in partnership with you and with your feedback. So thank you very much.